Good morning. Tom Walsh is my name from Kean University, and we're aboard the Battleship New Jersey talking to James Earl Jones from East Orange about his experiences aboard the Battleship New Jersey. And I wanted to ask you, James, first, how did you become involved with the ship?
Well, I volunteered for naval service. That's usually a good beginning to get on board any American vessel. Actually, I went to boot camp in Florida and went to seaman school. I was 17 at the time, so I had no real plan. So when you have no real plan at 17, you're in the Navy, you basically do what you're told to do when you're told to do it. And they told me to report to the USS New Jersey after seaman school. I need to say too, when I got here, about a half hour before I was actually due to report, you know, those kind of things happen when you're 17, you know, in a new town, and you just get there, everything is done just as it becomes necessary. But anyway, I'm walking up the pier, and they have the barges for crew on the left-hand side of the pier, and they have this maelstrom of scaffolding and lights and welding torches going. Now, one would assume that there's something there, but when I first walked up on the pier, you really couldn't tell what it was. So as the days and nights began to go on, slowly the scaffolding began to come down. And after the scaffolding was all gone the first night, from the pier, you looked at this thing, and well, the first thought was, what have I gotten myself into here? But this after you get over those initial jitters, the first thing that came across my mind was, I am part of something great, something that's much bigger than I am, and I only hope to be worthy of, you know, what it took to get me here. And that's an awe-inspiring feeling at 17, because at 17, believe me, you have not had that many awe-inspiring feelings. But that's pretty much how I got there.
She is a beautiful ship, isn't she?
She always has been, and she always will be. I mean,
Yes,
she
indeed.
always will be.
Well, could you tell me what were your experiences aboard the ship? What was your rating, and what were your duties and your experiences?
Well, I was a boatswain's mate seaman. Actually a seaman because I hadn't struck for boatswain's mate. Again, I was in that phase where if you don't know what you want to do, and you're not actually trained for a particular job, you go into deck division. And that basically entails maintenance and upkeep of the ship and underway watches. But in the USS New Jersey, the difference between the USS New Jersey and other ships was that for the underway watches, they required that you be third class or above, bring some amount of experience to the ship. So basically, upkeep and maintenance of the ship is what I was doing. There are many wonderful things to do around the ship, but generally you were doing your own job, and as you were doing your own job, you were beginning to look at the other jobs to see what looked a little bit better, so you could get a sense of direction.
Well, what then did a boatswain mate do? What was his major duties?
Oh,
Boatswain's mate.
A boatswain's mate had a lot to do. As I said, it was painting, grinding the decks, a lot of mopping. Let's see, a lot of cleaning. But there were also other duties like underway replenishment, food being brought onto the ship, or equipment or food or personnel being brought off the ship. Boatswain's mates actually did the rigging between the ships to carry, you know, that stuff back and forth. Also, boatswain's mates handled the small boats on the ship, the captain's gig, and the other small boats that were used at various times while the ship was deployed. And I mean, just about everything anyone who didn't have a rate to do something else, a boatswain mate was actually doing it.
Well, tell me, what was one of your most memorable experiences on the ship, or the one that made you smile the most? Or
Uh, when when she went on sea trials, um, there was when we were on sea trials, the first sea trials, and she got up to her max speed. She was an awesome looking ship, but what kind of struck me about this whole situation, I mean, there are ships out here protecting this ship, and everybody's serious, everybody's awestruck about being on a battleship, and there's this FFG off to our starboard side.
what's an FFG?
Guided missile fast frigate, um, and what she's actually doing is she's off our starboard side. She goes around our bow. She comes over to our port behind us, and she actually just keeps doing circles around. It kind of reminded me of like doing donuts.
Why was the frigate circling around you all the time?
Well, basically, it wasn't so much that it was circling. It was actually on point for protection during the sea trials. But it kind of, at 17, it just reminded me of someone using a large, very expensive vehicle to show off and have a little. It just seemed like, at 17, it just seemed like a lot of fun. These two big vessels and somebody's having fun with a real large vessel just circling the battleship like that.
So let me get this straight. The idea is that the frigate would go around the battleship in case the battleship went under attack by a torpedo. The frigate would take the torpedo. Is that
well? Obviously, it probably would. I'm almost sure that it would. But what it more so was at the Jersey's top speed, the frigate at its top speed would pass the Jersey, go to her bow, slow down, come to her side, come around her. It's like she could run. Basically, to me, it was like the captain was saying that, yes, you're a lovely ship, but I can still run circles around you.
Okay.
But that was one of the classic moments, I thought.
Well, could you tell me how the service aboard the ship impacted your life?
Well, during boot camp and A school or seaman school, it's somewhat easier to find out how to do it. This is what is required of me, and within this amount of time, and this is the time that I have it done. On the ship, you have a lot of the same requirements, but interaction with people becomes much more important because we're in a tight space. It's all of us in a tight space now. And in addition to that, it was kind of what you would call that first clash with what one had as an illusion for the first 17 years, clashing with having to work with people and be on one's own for the first time in one's life. So it's kind of it was a sink or swim situation is basically what it was, and I didn't always do as well as I thought or as well as I'd like to have done, because at 17 it can be a very stressful situation, but the rewards are unbelievable. When we came back into port, I was asked to, at colors, take down a flag on the fantail, and now they had just done the decks on the inside of the ship. So in order to do this, I had to scale around on the outside of the ship, be in place by the time colors was called, and have the flag down at a certain time when colors was called. Now, I did this by getting there where I needed to be on time. As colors was called, bringing the flag down, folding the flag, and it is required that if you're taking down the flag, that you salute the flag or the flag post that you have just taken it from. So here I am with my hands basically full. Well, my left hand basically full with this flag, and my right hand. And how am I going to salute? Because I'm being suspended by a safety harness. So what I did was I left the flag in my left hand. I leaned back, made sure the harness was tight, and I saluted the post on the stern. And I'm not sure if it was the exact. Actually, it was the engineering officer who was watching me the entire time, and he gave me a job well done. It was the first one I had gotten in the Navy, and it was like saying you hit the lottery.
It meant a lot to you.
It really meant a lot, because the guys, the officers, and the enlisted crew worked hard to get that ship ready as fast as they did, and they did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
They really did.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? Any other any of the stories? Any other thing you might mention?
Well, nothing really comes to mind at the moment, but I'd still 20 years later, I would still recommend the Navy to any young person who decides or who hasn't decided what they want to do ultimately. It can be the thing that it's a thing that makes metal out of people.
Yeah.
It really does.
Well, thanks a lot, James. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here.